This is Community Connections, and I am Anna Orr on behalf of OROMIA11. Today's guest is Ruqia Abdi, Assistant Library Manager, as well as the author of this wonderful book here. Today we're going to talk about resources and programs and affinity groups at the Arlington Hills Library, as well as this book here that she is using as a resource to help parents navigate parenting within the United States. Stay tuned. This is going to be a wonderful episode you won't want to miss. So excited to have you with me.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm so glad to be with you.
Can you talk to me a little bit about, just a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to our viewership, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, my name is Ruqia Abdi. I am a manager at one of St. Paul and Public Library and branch, and I'm also an active member in the Somali community, and I am advocate for women and children, and I kind of do parenting workshop, and lately I've been doing like one-on-one and a kind of a parenting workshop with parents because of the need, and became a little bit wider. And I also kind of do consulting work for schools and some other public library systems.
You are quite busy. I would love to dive in just a little bit more about your work with the library. You are currently at the Arlington Hills Library, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you let me know what a library manager does and basically how that came to be your role?
Yeah, so I worked for many years for Hennepin County and library system as cultural liaison and associate librarian, and then I wanted kind of to move forward, and so I applied this position as a manager, and kind of I used to be in charge of the library, which was like Franklin, Eastlake, but then kind of right now, and I'm exposed kind of to see what is really, what really means to be a manager, and which is kind of overseen and almost becoming and being responsible of everything that happens at the branch level, and so there are a lot of responsibilities that are involved in my role, and right now I'm the typical manager, kind of on overseeing the staff who are over there, and making sure programs are happening and the staff and the public are safe, kind of working with the facilities, partnering with a community organization, schools, working with them. So there are like many things kind of, but generally like you are the person who makes things happen, but it's not only you, but you have to kind of tap on who's good at this, who does this, who knows who, and then bring them over there so that we can serve the community out there.
Now, you shared a little bit about the previous libraries that you worked at, the one on East Franklin, the one that's over south, correct? When you first moved here in 2000, you were at the one over south by Cedar, correct?
And it was like a mini library, so Hennepin County Library System, 41 libraries together. But then I started as a cultural liaison to bring the Somali community in the city, the Riverside area, and to the surrounding libraries. So there are 4 libraries over there, and Southeast at that time, Central, the big one, and downtown, Eastlake, and Franklin. And then when the grant finished, and I went down to Eastlake and then Franklin. But basically, I was kind of an asset for the system. So it's like I was kind of helping out, and whenever there was a need, and in terms of serving the East African community, Somali community.
Okay. Yeah. Now, when I traditionally think of a library, I think of such a space that's so quiet, so strict, but often predominantly Caucasian. I don't see a lot of people that look like you or people that look like me within the libraries. How did you work to help change some of that within the libraries that you were at?
Yes, so it is a little bit kind of a complex. Yes, the library and has a main kind of a group, for example, and historically, but at the same time, I had that experience when back in 2000 when I moved here, and I kind of used the Central Library here in South Minneapolis, which became like my second home, using there. And I used to homeschool my kids, and that was our like a school. They used to study there. I used to read by my own, and then my kids really became very successful kind of whenever they finish their stuff and navigate whatever program and that's happening over there. So they were like the first, we were seeing what's happening over there. But at the same time, that feeling of I'm using the library, but I do not belong existed in me, but at the same time, I really had this love of the space, the public space, and I always had a dream like this has a potential, because really it was very supportive to me, and the success that I have and my kid is the library, the public library is behind that. So every time when I see other families, I say, oh, let's go to the library. The library, I'm like, what are you talking about? The library? I don't want to read. I'm not going to school. So that was the same question and answer that I was getting. At the same time, since I had this like unconditional love for the library, and I wasn't seeing myself like too much different, at the same time I couldn't see myself over there. But at the same time, and someone reached me out, and while I was going there, and I started volunteering there and trying to see. So there were some and BIPOC and folks who work over there. At the same time, they were not visible, right? And it's not too much, but they were not visible to the public. At the same time, I started volunteering, and then there was this opportunity that came up. I'm like, oh, I can see. And I really, really remember, and especially East Lake, where most of the Somali youth are over there, when they have some, sometimes they goof around, and then I go over there. I'm like, oh, auntie, they call me Habariya, and they say, oh, Habariya, you work here? Can I work there? So I could understand what you're saying and where you're coming from. That notion exists. But for me, I was kind of curious, like, how come there are no people? And then I started working. Now I started seeing the dynamics and what's happening over there. But the main idea really and concept and the purpose of the public library is to serve this community, the needs of its community, right? So here comes a dilemma of who gets to decide what the needs of the community is, right? So that is where you ask yourself, okay, who's deciding these programs? These programs don't work for these communities, right? At the same time, there are some people who look like you, but they are not over there visible. So there is this challenge that I have seen, yes, and at the same time, the last 2 years, for example, especially the death of George Floyd and brought everything out, like everyone, started saying like, no, I'm not accepting this, right? Started speaking up. So that is where, and I started to hear more about like, no, this is not fair. I know what my community needs. And people who are kind of behind the scene kind of came up and really like right now, and there is a big progress that's kind of happening, and diversity and inclusion, for example, talk started becoming more, right? And I am a member of a BIPOC advisory group for the state library services, and right now, and how it came to being is like we were like a group of people like, okay, this is happening. So more of what we were feeling was like, okay, society needed something, and we're having, so there were like 2 layers of problem, and kind of I realized it, and kind of with the experience of being part of this group, really it's like, okay, there are people, but the people are not feeling they are over there and to serve their community, for example, or their idea gets validated, right? So those kind of a talk created little kind of a friction, because no one likes change, as we know, right? At the same time, right now, and for example, St. Paul Public Library and is doing racial equity work, for example, and most of the systems started doing diversity and inclusion and work. That means they have to hire, and in order to prove, and they are there are people who look like the community that the library is located, right? Over there. So in that case, so people in the administration started kind of a hiring and more folks who are able to kind of serve the community, but at the same time, some people felt like they are being used as a puppet, kind of like that. Okay, you are this, but at the same time, when it comes to the decision making, and my ideas are not being validated, and so there is a frustration that is growing, and part of that came from, like, for example, and dealing if when the administration wants to respond to the needs of the community, and it's changing. What I mean is changing is like it's changing by the month right now, and so there is a group. The group is like they're working, and then that part needs to be solved. So it's like when you're developing a team, there are 4 stages. You form the team. There's like storming, there's norming, performing, which is the ideal. So coming with they're already over there together, and then storming is what started internally. For example, the workplace culture, for example. Right. So that workplace and happen to have majority 2 groups, right? And the 2 groups are both of them like victims, for example, right? And one group is having the mindset of internalized privilege. The other group is having internalized oppression. Both of them are okay being together, kind of. But the change that most of the administration, for example, is looking, and people who are kind of in the middle, who are allies, who want to do the real work for the public, are having these challenges, how to bring or to keep moving and making those people work together, right? So that you are not being having like internalized oppression, because you're accepting what the other people told you already, right? The status quo. So in order to make the policy change, and one of the things that I really admire and the administration of SPPL, Simple Public Library, is doing is like the public facing, for example, and digital equity, and because the need changed, that people started having the need of and distance learning, for example, was new, right? And there is there are a lot of communities who don't know how to use the computer. So there is like a pan and hotspots, so people can borrow, and laptop distribution start happening, and digital navigators, which didn't exist before, and the library started hiring digital navigators so that they can work one-on-one with people when they come and they want to troubleshoot, and those smaller annoying technology thing, because digital divide was another thing that existed before. So the public facing is like a systemic change, is kind of going, it's like the normal stage, it's working, right? So under the other part is like a little bit like lower level right now in the internally, like workplace culture, but at the same time it's kind of a moving. There is a lot of like effort that's really going over there, that I hope and it's going to be successful. I don't know we are going to reach the performance stage where everything is going to be happy, but there is some effort that's really going on from state level. I was
going to say, it sounds like you have laid a lot of the track for the work to be done, but also for you to be able to see the end result of success that you and your colleagues are working towards.
Exactly, yeah.
I just want to kind of double back to some of the things I heard you share. Now, I recently was just reading on the United States Census Bureau that the Somali community represents 1% of the Minnesota state population. That's upwards of 55,000 people. That's a significant number. And when you talk about not only the cultural work, the cultural liaison work that you're doing within the libraries, letting them know about having events at certain times so that it can give you and other participants that are Muslim a chance to pray, or a space to do so that they don't have to leave, helping bridge the gap, like you said, between those 2 different groups.
Yes.
I think it it has provided such a wide scope, but also changed the lens of what the library believed they could do within their community.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
Yes.
I think that's really exciting to hear, and I think it's important for future generations to be a part of,
Yes.
so that they can realize that they have the power to change things, especially in a space that may not look traditionally comfortable to us or familiar.
Exactly.
I just would like to talk to you about the ways in which you have been able to foster a sense of community in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke about the trainings that you have been hosting, that you had been hosting within the library systems. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so kind of and fostering, like, and it started as and back when I was a liaison, for example, because that was the need that I saw, just saying we're gonna serve the community and willing and without the knowledge, and it doesn't work, right? And as the society tells us, and also you have to get money in order to do the work, in order to hire people, right? So you have to have a grant, for example, in order to do some extra work that wasn't normal before. At the same time, people want to see statistics. They want to see on surveys, and the community doesn't do this. You may have some statistics. Okay, there was a need of a library in the area, and some community members talked about. There was some research paper done by University of Minnesota and grads, and at the same time, the real people are like when you go. So the first thing that I started really is like taking my team and to the community, working over there, like asking them, talking to them, because I already knew over there, although reality, I learned more things that I even didn't know, that, sometimes there is like assume a thing, but then they say it aloud. So that is what I did. And then we realized that, yeah, we need to do and the work, and because of there is an input, and the input is a verbal, and it's like a authentic. We're going there, we're asking people, and so I said, and like in our meetings, it comes up, but they don't want, and the program they don't like. Oh, what makes you think that? Because they're leaving. Oh, yeah, they're leaving. And their child, for example, one of the examples was like when some of the teens, for example, there are amazing teen programs, by the way, that the libraries has, and I would love to see more, and East African community coming and using. So what happens is like the mom comes and then takes the child in the middle of those STEAM programs that they're doing. The child wants, and then the mom like pulls, and then like, okay, now we don't know what to do. Okay, I know what to do. When the mom is leaving, the mom, do you know the name of the mom? No. The mom doesn't trust you. Straight up, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the same mom that had a negative, for example, experience with the teachers when they first came to the country. And you look like the same of that teacher, and there is no effort that happened, right? So I try to facilitate. There should be trust, and the trust doesn't build about talking one time and two times. It builds up, right? So I try to say, okay, do you want the real thing? These people pray 5 times a day. Now, why don't they pray? That is totally different. If you really want to know, they pray 5 times a day. They don't want to tell you that, and that is not a negotiable thing. And you held meetings and programs during the prayer time, they're just excuse themselves because that is what they can do. That's the circle of control. The things that they cannot control, they will not do. So that is the time that I started, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what you will see. And then this child who's leaving, you hooked on with the child, but not the parent. The parent needs to trust you. The parent needs to say, okay, and it's over there. I'm gonna leave my child there and come back after 2 hours and pick that child up. That trust needs to be built up there, right? And then at the same time, right now, because of my position, I'm kind of so grateful. I'm not doing direct kind of a training right now, but I'm doing like in the mini level, like infusing with all staff meetings, for example, things that I see, sharing my ideas, and as it comes up, and also kind of and consulting when I'm giving advice to other folks in the other system, and I tell them the reality. Things are changing. You need to change your mindset, and that is only if you want to continue serving the community
That's true.
that you said I'm gonna serve. Yeah.
How do you introduce library patrons to the programs, but also to the services that the library offers? I know you spoke a little bit about talking to them one-on-one and going out into the community, but how do you work to make them comfortable, like you said, when it seems like the space or the landscape in which they already are a part of doesn't seem to reflect one that they're coming from?
Yeah, so it depends on kind of, for example, the kind of community you're serving, right? And then being aware of right now. And again, I like to refer last 2 years because that is the, it was a turning point. And after the death of George Floyd, really many things became clear.
That's
and
true.
yeah, and I see a lot of change happening by the minute, right? Because if you don't do it, people are leaving, right? And we have to also accommodate young generation who are not accepting what we say because of our position or parent or whatever. So we need kind of not to lose those young generations. That is the number one and thing. And the other thing is like when you are aware of your community, and most of the public libraries it started putting up, for example, sign that says all are welcome, right? All are welcome. And
I have seen a few of those.
you have seen, right? All are welcome. That's beautiful, and I really don't want to dismiss that because it is awareness that happened in the system. And then there is an effort that happened. The communication department gave it time to design all these things, put over there. At the same time, if we have the same group who have the same and internalized privilege mindset and internalized oppression mindset, who's gonna do that work? What is you're all welcome? What does it mean even, right? And
Going
now,
beyond the words.
yeah, so this time is the time where and people who are really putting the effort, including the leadership team, and want to tap into the experts of the community, who we want to come to the library, right? So, for example, in my library, and we have a newly renovated place in children's area, and that children's area and the community that use mostly over there and are Somali, Hmong, right, and current community. And so right now, in order to make them feel they belong over there, not just tell them, hey, come. And we try to infuse cultural and elements into this space. So now if you go, we have like a story and Hmong story cloth, and which appeals to that community. And then when we are reading story time or invite someone to read so that they can feel and they belong over there, we have a Somali hat and design it as a reading nook. And when people come they just run over there and then sit down. So we have to kind of add elements, and then also when they come and the space, we need to welcome them, right? And to create that sense of belonging, not just you came and go. So the space, I believe, and the potential of the public library, the space is a teacher. It's a teacher itself. Like if you don't put chairs over here, and if you tell me to come and sit down, and you didn't even prepare a chair, like, what does it mean? You're not welcoming me, right? True. It's just a mouth, right? But at the same time, when you design the space, keeping in mind who's using, now we need also to add the other things like customer service. People who will smile go to that person and then tell them what programs we have. So that is what right now is kind of a fostering sense of community, and it's not only space, it's not only people who are just sitting somewhere, but it's people who are really giving efforts, reaching out, and also when they come over there, not only leaving them, for example, when they come for story time, and I don't let families go because they listen to story time. No, oh, did you know we also have this program? Oh, did you know we also have this program? I force moms right now, that's one of my mission, I want them to go back to school, because most of the East African and community, they kind of say, oh, I have young children, I have to raise them, I have to take care of them. When they grow up, then I will go to school. I said, listen. And when we were living back home, we were thinking we have to raise these children first, then ourselves we have to sacrifice, because we didn't have enough resources, we didn't have enough food, we were sacrificing for our children. Listen, right now, there is enough for everybody. Come on, give them what they need. Now do what you have to do in order to be better parent. By the way, that's the name of my book. Like, you have to be better, right? And when your kids grow up, you have to grow. Your knowledge needs to grow. So that is kind of the thing that I'm really like becoming successful right now in the like behind the scene level. And many mothers really who are whose language is not the first in English are really enjoying and really understanding the concept of you need to learn. If you learn how to help your child homework, third grader, for example, you're ready to take a college level and math and go to the the college. I'm like, oh, I didn't think that. Like, so now, like, they're kind of getting that
starting to consider with the wheels starting to turn.
Yes, and when you learn something, you can ask questions. You can speak up for yourself, and when you go to the school, you can talk to them. And navigating the education system is the most challenging thing that the East African community is facing right now.
Now, you mentioned your book, and I want to just pivot a little bit and talk about that. Your book is titled Better Parenting, A Guide for Somali Parents in the Diaspora. It is available in English and Somali.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that's wonderful that not only, like you said, I'm not only offering it to others to use maybe as a resource, but also in a language that they can prefer and understand. That's
exactly,
secondary
yeah.
support. Can you talk to me about what your vision was behind coming out with your book? I know it seems to be a bit obvious, but a lot of others don't know that you were a bilingual assistant in the school systems, in the Minneapolis public school systems.
Yes.
And so you were able to witness not only day-to-day with children and staff and teacher interactions, but can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and so it is like a happy, and it's also there is like some sadness involved in my book. And yes, and my background is child development, and I have a degree in child development, and how I went to that is also another story, right? So when I was really and working for Minneapolis Public School, which I'm so grateful that I got to be exposed over there. Like I came to this country in 2000 and 2001, and I started working and as an education assistant for Cooper School, which is like in the Longfellow area, and beautiful and school and a community school. Kind of I got exposed it and what the needs of the kids are and the parents. But inside of me, I always love it being around children. That was something that was inside of me, right? At the same time, I saw many things that I couldn't ask, why it's happening. For example, I came to this country with my daughter and husband, and then she was about a year and a few months, right? My vision for my daughter was to get the best possible education in this country. And then when I saw how the education was going on, it really like made me worry about why. And then I started becoming curious about what's going on inside of the brain of these children. Why some kids are not learning, kind of, I wasn't believing like kids don't learn because mostly they're performing lower than their grades, right? So I started learning child development. When I learned that, and then now I started and hearing more stories, because of when you're involved and when you hear, totally different. Especially when I know you in the workplace, and when I know you, and for example in the community, it makes like more like and like a deeper story. So those parents who are coming to the school, and I know them in the community. Like I go back home, they knock my door, they ask me like, "Hey, Ruqia, we need this." Okay, now immigrants are forced to go to school. Like the schools are their first place, right? And then what happens is like I saw many parents getting worried about, because of they are meeting with social workers, and there was so stigma, and involved in that, because the child is dirty or something's happening, not considering like what is causing that. Is it neglect, or is it some lack of support that's happening, right? So I started writing down this as my own. And the sadness that I really, and I have seen is like many stories, but then when I really started learning was like when I learned so many parents and their teen children are getting divided, right? And many parents start sending their kids back home because of, and they thought that this environment is not helpful. They are kind of acting out. And then I'm studying, right? At the same time, I'm getting exposed to this and stories. At the same time, I'm a mother of teens who are growing up here. So I asked myself, I'm learning child development. I saw these teens are having developmental changes inside of their brain. And these parents are thinking the environment has to do with that. But at the same time, when they go back home, those hormones are not going to stop. They're just going to continue acting out.
True.
They're just going to say,
I
I don't want to do that, right? And I said, okay, why they're doing this, right? When you say why, just inside of you, and then I started looking for, how about parenting education? Is there something like that? I started thinking I need to write down and my knowledge I need to put down here. And then the first thing that I started is like presenting, because I also have a background in Islamic studies in academic, and I said, I'm gonna weave that in knowledge in child development into the Islamic and studies and the culture, because there is also a little confusion sometimes, the religion and the culture, what they do, right? Or what us and parents and we do. So I started kind of laying down and helping parents understand how we used to be raised back home, and here there is a different. There are different parenting styles. And then I went back to the community kind of, so, we have mosques, community centers, we're focusing, teaching the child. It's like, there is like and I love that, there is like a higher degree and emphasis that we put teaching. But I said, how about parents? They don't know this thing. They don't know what's going on, and we have like early and learning is very weak. And if a kid is miss all these stages, right, they are not going to be successful. So I said, this is nobody's doing. It's my duty. I need to write down. So I tried to write down book as like little bit as a helpful. I never thought I'm gonna be author or doing this, but then I just like an ebook so that the librarians can use and schools and kids. So one of my friend Sarah Suber, who is and the founder of Break the Silence, I'm so grateful that I just consulted with her, and also another colleague Bernie Farrell, who works for Hennepin County and library system. And so Sarah said, you know what, you have to go to this publisher. Don't like and put your book like in here and like behind the scene. This is very important thing. So I'm so grateful getting that support. I did it. I'm like, oh, like everybody like, oh, we needed this book. It was like really responsive. So the way I started is like, I need to do, and then just combining my experience and advocacy, like, work went into that. And then I try to kind of weave, teaching them, yes, these are the developmental stages that kids go, and then we need kind of to change a little bit our parenting style, because there is a sense and a mindset that, oh, these are Western thinking, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I just lay down over there and verses from the Quran that confirms, like, okay, all these theories and that I'm studying is kind of the same, like, you know, what the Quran is telling us, how to treat children, you know, how our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and treated with children, like, and so that is what we need to do. And that is because different styles, right, have outcomes. And then I kind of try to really, I do that in constant, in one-on-one, in a group and workshop. I always tell them and infuse and parents, because I know that is a point that we really need, kind of how we communicate our children is totally different than how the teachers are communicating and how we used to communicate. And that is not something strange. It exists. It's called parenting style, but they have different outcomes depending on the environment we are. So if we are in this environment and you are using a style that we used to use back home, it's not going to work. The outcome is going to be different. That is something that you don't want to see. So then the realization and happiness, oh, I didn't know that, Ruqia. I'm like, yes, now I did something.
Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the programs in which you started to, I think, talk about earlier, in the program that are taking place at the library that the public can be a part of? I know that you guys currently, you mentioned offer equipment rental, but also provide Wi-Fi, scanning, faxing options for people. And I know throughout the pandemic, so many people have transitioned or, like you said, have gone back to school or have started businesses. And a lot of us, because we didn't expect the pandemic, were ill prepared to make that adjustment. And so I don't think a lot of people have considered the library as a secondary office resource that can help you, you know, rent a laptop or book a room where you can have a space and have an interview or record a podcast or whatever you choose to do. So can you kind of share with the public some of those programs?
Yeah, so, and in general, it's simple public library kind of service and people of all ages, and to kind of connect, learn, discover, and grow. That is the mission. And we have 13 branches and a bookmobile that you can reserve and ask and through and the website sppl.org. So the programs that we do is like the baseline, because whenever you think library books, right? Books, of course, we have to start that. Of course, books and DVDs, music, and events and programs, and which are like change. They change, right? And so we also have spaces. So spaces are some of the things that public are not more aware of, but this is one of the potential of the library, and the reason I love it, because you can book a room, as you said. And we have seen, and really, and the last 2 years in the pandemic, the need that, for example, we saw people and in the government, elected officials, some of them even using the study rooms. So it became like a little bit their mini office, right? So this is some of the things that we kind of offer. You can request, you can reserve, if you have even community gatherings, because that is the mission of the library, to kind of help people connect and together, and so that it's also relevant and it's accommodating whatever and they need. So we do all these programs, and as I said, whatever we're doing, and we're accommodating kind of, and renovated and children's area, for example, and kind of to include all these elements and bring those bilingual, and for example, and storytellers, and who can connect with parents and bring in someone who will help parents and kind of interact and teach them kind of those mini and parenting skills, and I call, because it's like every interaction really fosters and growth in these children, right? So those are the things that and most of the public are kind of not aware of, and but the library has, and someone who needs and filling up application, they are applying work. For example, we have career lab, and we have digital navigators who are ready and for them and to help. And yes, those laptops were not even renting; it was for giveaway. And when it was like, this is one of the things that I love, like when you started the change in the systemic level, digital equity, and like these people need this and book and and laptops because of household of and 6 and 8, each child needs to do a lesson. Imagine the teacher is teaching from her home or of the school, kind of through screen, right? So there is a lot of need and that happened, and the library tries to respond that need. And even some of the programs that used to exist, right? Sometimes you have a program that was going on story time, for example. This is one of the strength that even in Simple Public Library was like a consistent story time used to happen. Now nobody can and go out. So the pandemic happened. Kids are at home. Virtual story time starts. So it's the same thing, but in a different way. So kids are at home, parents are at home, they can watch those and virtual story time, and it really empowered them. It really even like it became something that used to be a barrier, and I don't think we're gonna abandon that, because it's needed and it's helping and kids. It's just out there in our YouTube, and it's on demand anytime you have a time, because the story time has a time. 10:30 you have to be at the library. I'm working 10:30. I cannot come to the library.
Right.
But I came back 5:30 at home. Now you can go and and so we have a lot of things. And another thing that I would love to share is like, and that I see kind of a developing with the needs of the society. It's like a program that's called Read Brave, that and Simple Public and Library but it's a city-wide initiative, and kind of to empower people, like and a kind of and encourage them the power of reading and bring discussions. For example, they choose themes. For example, it started before the pandemic, and so it's like theme based. Like they choose like 5 books, for example, and they plan to bring, for example, the programs for reading those books, different levels, right, intergenerational, and also kind of creating activities around that achieves the goal of the theme, right? So this year, for example, what the community needs. Community is tired. Self-care is become something like, we had it before, but we never had people saying, I need to do self-care. Okay. And then self-care is different for everybody. For me, self-care is like drinking tea. Another person is like, I want to go to the beach, right? So it's so many different things. So community care was the theme of the Read Brave. So that program existed before, but now, because this is the need of the society right now, it's community care, and then story time, and also that story time we replace the one of the books, and then the mayor also participates. It's like a kind of an amazing, beautiful program where a lot of people are like involved. The mayor reads stories to the kids, and by the way, our mayor is the best storyteller I have ever seen.
That's high praise coming from you.
Yes. So like we hear these stories, and also those activities kind of serve like a healing. That's what the people need, community care, kind of sharing recipes and from certain ethnic communities, and holding all these sessions in different libraries. Same program, same name, but evolving with the needs of the community. Yeah.
there was two programs that I wanted to highlight while I was looking at the website for the Arlington Hills Library. I also want to keep sharing that that is the location that Ruqia works at in case anyone wants to come out or wants to talk about her book or wants to get their kids more involved. They'll be able to know where to find you. One of the programs is the Lucky Day items. And I thought that was really cool that you guys carry new and popular books and DVDs. So as reading circles are breaking out while we're still easing back into a sense of normalcy or new normalcy after the COVID pandemic, people are forming groups to read books together, whether it's online or in person, in parks spread out, of course, safely, social distancing. I want to share. But I thought that program sounded so cool. And then for people to still go and rent DVDs, like you said, people are having computers at home, are able to receive the given computers. And now they can rent a DVD from the library, take it home, let their kid watch it a million times, or they watch their favorite movie a million times, and then bring it back to the library, starting to foster a connection that we don't have. Fiscally, times are really hard for people, and they are unable to afford Netflix, Hulu, Roku, all those different things. So being able to come to the library as a resource and still provide safe and I think parent-controlled entertainment can be important, not just to minors, but to anyone that's coming to the site. Another program I wanted to highlight was the pop-up managing kits, or pop-up meeting kits. I have never heard of anything like this, and I thought this was really cool to recognize. You guys can provide wayfinding signs, so direction signs to tell people where to go. If they're hosting a meeting or having a program in an office setting, you can rent a projector. You can do information around a block party. I know so many people have been organizing as of late, like you said. A lot of people after the death of George Floyd and so many others decided to take things into their own hands and start organizing for their communities.
And they need a safe space where they can be and feel belonged. And the library was there already, but now it's been used and well used. And I'm really so glad to see that change is happening in the public library, and the public are realizing that it's there for you. And the other thing that they don't realize sometimes is like you ask, right? Now we have, for example, and another program that I would like to mention is like Creatic, and it's a teen program made by teens for teens. It's like kind of a studio and like a place where they can come and kind of STEAM-based activities on technology. Some of the softwares that center has, for example, are not easily accessible. For example, my kid is kind of grew up in such a place, and then I try to be super mom. I'm gonna do that program for him, like, and then Adobe is like $500. No, I'm not gonna do this. So there are so many.
It's very pricey.
Yeah, so there are so many 3D printer, for example, and it's not something that you can build at home, but who knows what the interests of the teen are going to be. So I would really love to see more and youth and BIPOC youth are using that in space, because they have unlimited thing, and the other power that they have over there is we listen to them. We listen to them even when we don't have things. We needed to do this thing. We purchase for them. If we don't have the money, we ask grants. So we tap into so many really organizations who are ready and to do. So it's like a space that's really available for and teens and after school, that they can be a member and do like practice anything they want, like recording and film and making and art, all kind, playing games. So it's really one place that I think it's been not used well.
Okay. Okay. So hopefully we can get some more people from the community Arlington Hills serves and the surrounding communities this will air to actually come be a part of that space, so that it'll keep going.
There are some libraries that have some libraries don't have, right? But at the same time, the good thing about the library is you can go any library when you get the library card.
You sure can.
You can be a member of that library, and now we have metro transit, bus lines go. So it doesn't mean like if you don't have if your library, local library, doesn't have a teen and a space or a creative or a teen tech place, it doesn't mean you are deprived from that resource. You can go travel to other libraries and do it, and keep telling this library to start, and making one.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, can you share the website for the library so that people can not only get a digital library card, but so they can also start looking up some of the programs and events and stay connected with the Arlington Hills Library?
Yes, so, and you go www.sppl.org. That is saintpaulpubliclibrary.org. And then inside, and when you go, you will see programs that we have. And if you choose a library, location is an hours, a specific library, you will see what that library has. But if you just go the programs, you will see just generally and system-wide what programs we have. If you need to reserve a room, if you need to register a certain program, because certain programs we like have a contract with people who come, so we register so that we know how many people are coming. And so they, even if they cannot do it, the registration, and if they don't have and the time or the knowledge to do, they can call us. And also, I also want to share that we also have a lot of online databases that even if you don't have a time to come to the library, just get a library card first. That's the number one thing. That's your passport to knowledge. Get a library card, and then after that, we can connect you to lots of programs, reading books, attending virtual programs while you are at home.
That's wonderful. Can you provide the website in case people are interested in purchasing your book or sharing it as a resource?
And so my book and my website is ruqiaabdi.com, my first and last name.com. And you can order and from there and my book, and although it's available in everywhere like Amazon, but if you're in Minnesota, support your local author and just go there.
That's right.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been an eye-opening experience, and I hope to have you come back when the fall starts so that we can talk about fall programming and keep our communities engaged and resources in our area so that we can further foster the community around us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here, and I will be coming back, of course. That is my best thing, like sharing resources, library resources, and with my community. That is the best part of, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is all the time we have today. A special thank you to the Arlington Hills Library, Ruqia Abdi and her wonderful team, and everyone else that has chosen to view today's episode. Please don't forget to purchase this wonderful book that is also in English and Somali for your personal use, or recommend it to your local school so that they can use it as a resource to help foster community. As always, I am Anna Orr, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.